beautiful good evening to our viewers in the Gambia and beyond. On the 24th of October each year is set aside to celebrate UN Day from across the world. This day provides us an opportunity, both UN staff and people from across the world, to celebrate the numerous achievements registered by the United Nations in terms of supporting the most vulnerable in our communities, people from underdeveloped countries, people from developed countries, women, youth, and the old. It's been 76 years of the existence of the United Nations, and today I want to take this opportunity to introduce the panel that I have here, who will be taking us through the United Nations, its achievements, the challenges that we have, but also get the opportunity to talk to the different partners that we continue to work with. On my immediate left, I have Mr. Alaji Jaju, who is the Executive Director of the National Youth Council. So Jaju, you're welcome to this panel. Immediately after Alaji, we have Salam Njai, who works with WADA, one of the key partners of the United Nations, especially when it comes to our work of strengthening peace in the Gambia. Madam Njai, you're welcome.
Thank you.
This one is a very exciting one for me to introduce the Honorable Speaker of the Children's National Assembly, Ms. Sarah Assisi, who would be here to talk on behalf of children from across the length and breadth of the country. Honorable Speaker, you're welcome. Immediately after, we have the UN Resident Coordinator, Mrs. Seraphine Wakana, who is here on behalf of the United Nations and will also be telling us a lot more about some of the amazing things that the UN is doing in the Gambia. Arsi, you're welcome. And finally, we have the UK High Commissioner to the Gambia, His Excellency David Belgrove, who is a very good partner to the UN, but also to the people of the Gambia, to the different initiatives. I'm really happy to see that we have, I'm going to wear my he for she hat, so I'll say we have more women on the planet, guys, which is quite good for me as well, but also highlights the numerous strides that have been undertaken by governments, by the United Nations in addressing issues of inequality, but also ensuring that each and every single person has a voice to speak on issues that affect and confront their development. To start with, I'll come to you, Arsi. What is the UN and what does it represent to the people of the Gambia?
Thank you very much. And so the UN, I would say, I was not going to respond to that question because I think everybody knows who we are. Because the UN is we the people. Everybody here is the UN. When we talk about UN in the Gambia, we see the staff, but we are serving the UN in each country, in each member state. So the UN was formed in 1945 after the two World War, as you know, and the objective was address the challenges that the world was facing at that time, those devastating wars. So the objective was to restore rights of the population, and that's why we are here in the Gambia, to work on everything related to rights. When we talk about rights, we talk about economic rights, human rights, we talk about political rights, all the range of rights that we can imagine. So that's what the UN is in each country where we are.
Great. Thank you very much, Arsi. You mentioned something very much important, and that is to say that the UN is here to serve the people of the different countries that they are in. Just a follow-up question. You've been in the Gambia for a while as the resident coordinator. What has been sort of your insights in terms of the working relationship that the UN has with the government and the people of the Gambia?
Yeah, I've been in the Gambia for 3 years, and I've been building on what others have been doing because Gambia joined the UN from far away in 1965, so you understand it's a lot of years. What the UN is in the Gambia is not what I know right now, but they have achieved a lot. And for the UN in the Gambia, what we do is not really what we do as a UN, but what we do in partnership with all those you see at the Panel today, including the government. So we are here to support the vision of the government. We don't have any objective of the UN. We work to implement the vision of the government, which is the vision of the Gambians. So we do everything from building the institutions and also addressing social protection, human capital. We go to economic empowerment. So a lot of things are done, but I would emphasize that maybe for us, we make sure that no one is left behind. So focusing on the most vulnerable is important for us. And also looking at how can we leverage on the niches that the country has. And for the Gambia, I would say most of our programs are built around youth and women, because we see that the youth constitutes the most part of the population. If we don't look at them, they are the future for tomorrow, so we miss the path toward the development.
Well, thank you very much, Arsi. Well said. Samba, I'll just come to you. The theme in the Gambia this year is the road to lasting peace. Obviously, the Gambia has been going through a transition since 2016, and in less than 40 days, the country will be heading to the polls. What do you think, from a peace perspective, to consolidate the peace in Gambia's transition?
Thank you very much, Mr. Baji. Good afternoon to all of you. Good evening, rather. Many thanks to the RC for the invitation, and happy International UN Day to us all. As she highlighted, we are the UN. Thank you very much, Mr. Baji, once again. First, I would like to state that the UN and the Gambian civil society has a very long-standing relationship dating years back. When it comes to peace building, the UN has intervened in different areas. Implementation of the 1325 resolution, women, peace and security, 2250 youth, peace and security. We did a lot of work around that area. Consolidating democratic governance. Actually, just earlier today, we validated the project document and the standard operating procedure for the development of the infrastructure for peace, which is funded by the UN. You know, they've been there with us, the RR and all of them, ECOWAS have been with us, so which is definitely a milestone. For the first time, the Gambia having an infrastructure for peace. We just validated those documents. And again, it should be noted that the UN has been the sole funder of the CSO Coalition on Elections the Gambia, which is coordinated by one of the Gambia and consists of almost 40 other civil society. They've been funding the coalition since 2006 when it was established. And again, earlier today, we've been asked to develop a proposal to see how best they can also assist in implementing some of the activities that we have. It is rather unfortunate that we are heading to elections without our much anticipated constitution. It's rather unfortunate. And again, going to the elections without the electoral law being revised. It's rather unfortunate that we are going to elections with the old law. Anyway, for now, the only thing that we can say is that we want to appeal to the head of political parties to be very mindful with the way they are doing their politicking. I would like to say that tomorrow the UN and ECOWAS will be meeting with the head of political parties, and they will be signing an MOU relating to peaceful conduct of elections. But again, what would have guided us is those two legal framework, which, as I speak to you right now, is a hope dash on the rock. But we, as civil society, we are doing our utmost by bringing together the key stakeholders, the politicians, the media, in fact, with support from the UN, the UNFPA, we've been able to develop a code of conduct for the youth inter-party and also the media and also the, yes, we've developed 2 code of conduct for the media and the youth inter-party, which we are planning to have them signed before the elections. So basically, we are doing our utmost. It's just also, you know, it should be a teamwork anyway, but as far as I'm concerned, as a society, we are trying our best with the support of our partners, the UN, EU, they also support it.
Great. So in essence, elections come and go, but the Gambia will always remain, and it's important for that peace to be nurtured by each and every single individual or actors as well. So that's very good. You mentioned something very interesting, and that is targeted at 2 groups. One is for young people through the youth intercommittee article you mentioned, and the second one is the media, who are very crucial when it comes to the dissemination of information, but also key players when it comes to ensuring that the peace is actually maintained through the different content or messages that they send out. What is the target, or what activities are you planning on rolling out to ensure that things like this are actually amplified, to ensure that the peace that we already have continues to stay?
Yeah, it's one thing having it, another thing is having them signed, and again, popularized. We also solicited support from the UN and other partners to have those MOU and code of conduct popularized at the end of the day. So you've also stated that it is important that we see to it that the Gambia have a very peaceful election. At the end of the day, it is our assets. It is our only asset as a country. What else do we have for now? Quote unquote, is the peace. So definitely we're thinking of having those important documents popularized. You as a young person who has been working in this area for quite a while know that the young people comprise almost like 60% of the population. So they are very critical stakeholders in this thing, and normally our politicians do manipulate them a lot, because of they are very vulnerable. So it was very important to have them together and develop the code of conduct. Likewise, the media. In fact, sometime last week, I was also opportune to be part of the meeting that was organized by the UN, the 3 different UN agencies, where the GPU was funded to come up with a portal on fact-checking.
On fake news.
For fake news, and which is also very, very key.
Yeah.
So I think with all those things in place, we should be able to at least have a very peaceful election, but also as ONEP, we've already released our policy brief for these forthcoming elections, where we came up with the issues, recommendations, our scenarios. So it will be interesting for all key stakeholders to read the policy brief, because definitely we had very strong recommendations highlighted there.
Great. David, I'll come to you. The COVID-19 pandemic has wreaked havoc from across the world, especially for developing countries. Markets or economies disrupted. There has been high cases of violence against women reported during the pandemic, especially during peak times. I know the UK High Commissioner in the Gambia has been working with UN Gambia to the different agencies like ITC and all of that to support vulnerable people, especially women. How can we leverage on partnerships as such to build more resilient economies?
A very good question, and you're very right. I mean, the pandemic has had a big hit economically across the world. But I think particularly we've seen it in Africa, and I was at a briefing just last week where they said virtually every country in sub-Saharan Africa is now at risk of debt distress. So I think that the first thing is to actually address the immediate situation, and I think this is why we have, it's one of the advantages of the UN is actually working towards these things, and bodies such as the World Bank and the IMF can actually address the immediate requirements to actually help support the government and support their budgets. So that's, you've got to do it at that sort of macroeconomic level as well. But I think, as you rightly said, we also have to be very conscious about the effect that it's had on individuals and certainly on marginalized communities. And certainly we did some research earlier this year with the Westminster Foundation for Democracy to look at how the lockdown measures had actually impacted on vulnerable communities, on women, on disabled people. And I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned there. But now moving forward, I think is now the time to actually look at, first of all, how do we build back better? I came across the term the other day, 3BW, so Build Back Better World. And I think that's very true. And how do we actually build back better? And that means building green economies, but also actually that inclusive economic development that is needed. So you've already mentioned that we've been doing work with ITC, for example, on she trades. But I think there's a lot more that we need to do. And in fact, I hope to be meeting ITC this week to actually discuss how we move forward. But what I would also like to see once we get past the elections is to say, I personally will be encouraging more UK investment into the Gambia and actually working on that. But it does need to have a policy of inclusive economic development, and that means giving everybody opportunities. And to do that, you do need to have a system where marginalized communities and women and girls have equal access to education, that they're given the tools to actually participate in the economy and the education to do that, and the opportunities. And so all of those things need to be encouraged. But also we need to see more women participating in the political process. More people, for example, people with disabilities participating in the political process. Because unless you do that, you're not going to have the policies in place to actually have that inclusive economic development. So there are a lot of strands that need to be addressed in this. And I think we need to learn the lessons from what's happened over the last 18 months to actually look at where people have been marginalized, but also think about how do we actually build back a much better world post-pandemic. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, David. Now I'll come to the Honorable Speaker of the Children's Court, Honorable Sarata. Sarata, what must we do as individuals, as communities, as a country to protect the futures of children and young people?
Okay, thank you very much for that wonderful question. The question is very important because you're like, what must we do? It's a collective responsibility, and we are about to face elections soon. And it is the responsibility of the government to make sure the cultural, economic, social rights of children are considered. The rights and welfare of children are put into picture, because peace and peace building is very important in a country. Because in a country where there is instability, it affects mostly the women and children. So what must we do is, the government has a role to play, as the Kerr mentioned. We have the family also has a role to play. The community has a role to play, but individuals themselves has a role to play. Because children are vulnerable, and they can easily get exposed to dangers. Sometimes children do things that are not right, but at least individuals should be able to stand and be able to rescue those children from whatever things they are getting into. And also to the political leaders, they should be very careful on what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. Because this affects the lives of children. If one should misbehave or something should come on board and there is instability, then it causes, it means like there is no enabling environment for the growth and development of children. And we said there should be a safety environment where children can grow and also realize their potential as children. So I would say it's the responsibility of the government. Hence, the government has ratified some international legal instruments like the United Nations Convention on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. They ratified something, meaning they need to implement it, they need to be enforced, and they need to pay attention to that because it is very important. It is not national, it is international level. So if something of that sort is to be signed, then meaning that it is not a low-key thing. It should be considered at a higher level. And all the risks that would come across children should be addressed. The government should be able to stand still. The family also should take up the responsibility to have children learn and realize what their rights are, and also help in the protection of the rights of the child. And the UN, as a body, under its agency UNICEF, has played a very important role in the Gambia in the protection of the rights and welfare of children. Since the Children National Assembly of the Gambia, after its establishment in 2018, the UN has been providing funds, and we have been having these intergenerational dialogues, and sometimes they come to where we are lot, and they will teach us about peace and peace building. And that is a very crucial thing, because we as children, if we are to know what peace is, what peace building is, then we would be able to go back to our families. We have younger ones, and we could spread our message to them. They have done sensitization, and during wars as well, they will give out some food and try to protect children. And that is a very good thing, because that shows how children matters to them. So in a nutshell, just to say, the government should play a very big role, because it is the primary duty bearer. Individuals have a role to play, family have a role to play, and children themselves has a role to play. So it is interdependent, and everyone should work hard towards the development and growth of children in order for them to have a good future, because we believe they are the future leaders of tomorrow. And if they are the future leaders of tomorrow and are left behind, then there is no tomorrow without them. And that tomorrow is not going to be a very good tomorrow, because they are at risk.
And that is why the UN says, leaving no one behind, making sure we carry in everyone as we move on. You mentioned something very important, and that is government ratifying the UNCRC, but also going a step further to sign and ratify the ACRWC, which is the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. Just one follow-up question. Like you said, whenever there is a breakout of a war or something, it is children and women who suffer the most, and that cannot be said any better. What message would you send to each and every single Gambian out there who is watching you right now, speaking on behalf of children from across the country?
What I will say is just a repetition of what I've said. It's collective responsibility. What I would say to Gambians is, the Gambians are Gambian. Government changes, but the state remains. So as a result, we should be very careful of our actions, because in the future, our actions could affect our children and our children's children. So as a result, in anything we do, we should try to know what its outcome is going to be, whether now or in the near future. So we need to be very careful of things that we do, because sometimes we do certain things and we will not see the outcome right now. But somewhere in the future, it can affect those children, because you are doing things and children are seeing you. And you should serve as a role model to children. You should show them the right path. They should follow the right footsteps. But if you as an individual or as a citizen is not showing a very good sign to children, then meaning that you're not teaching them what is expected of you. You're not playing your right as a very responsible citizen. You know, one needs to say, okay, the government is a primary duty bearer, but then you as a citizen, what can you do for your country? Even if you're not working under the government, but even as a citizen, as a responsible citizen, I mean, you should be able to do something for your country. At least you could be able to help children, or even not help children. If you cannot help them, then please don't cause something that will harm their lives.
Right, well said, Honorable Speaker. Thank you very much for those inspiring words to every single one that is watching us right now as we celebrate 76 years of existence of the United Nations from across the world. Alaji, I will come to you. The National Youth Council is the custodian of issues around young people, you know, from across the length and breadth of the country. One issue that continues to be discussed in the Gambia is inequality, you know, especially, and I mean, when we mention inequality, we know we're talking about women basically being suppressed or their development undermined. As the Executive Secretary of the National Youth Council, why do you think inequality remains so high in many countries, and what do you think we can do to tackle this problem?
Thank you very much, Abdullah, for ably moderating the session. Let me first and foremost begin by congratulating the UN for 76 years of existence, and of course, a great service to humanity, and of course, over 50 years of service to the Gambian people. And I think everywhere you go, be it in the Gambia or outside the world, the UN has become more of a representation of a single world. You know, when we all go, we feel as one people, or certainly, you know, people from the same world, and of course equal, you know, in whatever sense it might be. Although, yes, one would quote with its limitations, you know, certainly, you know, from the language. But I think the work that has been done by the UN has been seen. Whatever happens in the world today, the first point is, what is the UN doing? What is the UN going to say? And if the UN does not do anything, everyone is concerned that, you know, the UN has failed in its duty or its responsibility. So it's certainly a cornerstone, you know, really being able to unite together and ensuring there is peace, stability, and of course, you know, everyone, you know, feeling that they're part and parcel of the world. Now, when it comes to inequalities, I think it has been a long-standing problem, you know, inequality, either on the side of women or on the side of young people. But we know one thing is key if we want to do away with inequality, and the greatest solution is ensuring people are provided the needed capacity, and which will have to be providing them the rightful education that they need, be it for the girl child or be it for the child in the farthest regions of this country. If we want to enhance their capacities, they will have to be provided with the right skills and the right education. When that foundation is built, the honor now lies on them to really use those skills and those capacities that they have to really go out there and ensure they are defending themselves. But during that early stage of their lives, it is a government or people's responsibility to ensure that the people are provided with those rightful tools that they need. Yes, we will say in this country, over the past years, everyone has access to education, especially at primary level. But access is one thing, but relevance and quality
is another thing.
It's another thing. You want to get to ask the question, yes, there is access. Where is the relevance? Where is the quality? You know, these are questions that we again will have to keep asking. You go up country, you find a school, beautifully built school. Teachers, perhaps only one or two teachers who you find in that school. And you expect those children to be able to have, you know, the best of education, to be able to compete with their peers or colleagues all over the world, so that they are able to really contribute meaningfully to national development, but by extension, you know. So for me, the beginning of ensuring we are able to really do away with issues of inequality is ensuring every child has access to education, but not only access. It will have to be relevant, and certainly the quality will have to be provided for that. Once we do that, I think certainly we might not end it completely, but I think with the level it is, we would have gone way far beyond, you know, the level that we are today. You look at our educational system, people sit to exams, perhaps at grade 12, and you can see, you know, the number of failures, you know, that we have along the line. And again, you can see the number of women or girls, you know, the girl child that drops, you know, as we move up the ladder. At the primary level, well, statistically, you have more girls than even boys at the primary level. You go to the middle school or the junior school level, it's perhaps equal. You go to the senior school level, it tilts. You know, you have the female number drastically dropping. When you go to the highest level of education, it's even worse at the tertiary level, where the number of girls
is less than that of
way lesser. Now you look at perhaps at primary school when they started the number, and at tertiary when they started the number. You're not going to ask the question, where is that number? Where has it fallen down the line? And what are we doing for those numbers that have fallen down the line? And if we do not take care of those numbers that are falling down the line, down those cracks, as they move up, it certainly is going to be difficult to do away with issues of inequalities.
And that means they will continue to exist.
It will continue to exist, because what happens is, you know, the only avenue available for them is to go get married at a very, very early age.
But maybe just a follow-up question. Why do you think this is the status quo? That in the beginning, basic education, you have more girls than boys, but eventually when they reach high school or tertiary level, there's a complete shift.
I think it's a mindset, unfortunately. It's a cultural mindset that we have. Because for me, poverty wouldn't be an excuse, you know, as much as it's one part of it. But I can't understand where a family has two, a boy and a girl that should go to university, and preference is given to the boy, even where the girl does better, you know, than the boy. So that is no longer poverty. You know, that's an issue of the mindset. You know, people believing that they will have to take care of the boy child. It is for the boy child to take care of the family. I think these are great misconceptions that we will have to really, and so we do away with them. Understanding that, you know, both sexes, both the male and the female, are quite important. And we have seen great examples, you know, of families with only female, and they've been able to better take care of their parents than even families where we have only boys. So for me, the cornerstone, doing away with inequalities, is to really ensure we are able to provide people, you know, the right education, you know, but of course, providing them the relevance and the quality. And once they get to the tertiary level, I think government, or as a country, we have done our part. And certainly, you know, the rest lies on them. You know, either go seek for a job or, you know, employ themselves, and by extension, and for the people, and it allows them to certainly live a decent life. We have succeeded in getting so many people outside of the poverty line, but I think a lot more certainly needs to be done. And so we continue to get people outside, of the poverty line.
Great. Thank you very much, Alaji. RC, probably a good opportunity to follow up. You mentioned some really interesting things about inequalities, and this is something that the UN from across the world, but also in the Gambia, has been working on really well in terms of addressing. Perhaps important to shed light on how you think issues of inequalities could also be addressed in the country?
Yeah, I think inequalities is about concept, if I may say, and it's good to understand the different control behind the concept, because I think inequalities is also measured differently from one country to another, depending on the context, as he mentioned. So we can see inequalities based on sex, based on age, based on, I would say, between rural and urban areas. We see inequalities between countries. So it depends on what kind of inequalities we are facing in the country. And for the Gambia, I think a lot of studies have shown some of those inequalities. We do see a lot in the Gambia, because even if you look at what I'm saying about urban and the rural area, you can see the difference in terms of education, in terms of access to health services, in terms of even accessing administrative services. We see, we are talking about young people, and we feel that maybe we need to focus more on job creation. Why is it young Gambians are now taking back freight to go to Europe or any other places, and some of them are not reaching destination? So those are also based on inequalities. We have children, we have young people who have done a lot, and they think they have diplomas and a certificate, but they cannot access jobs. So we need to really look at those different inequalities that we are facing, including women. When we talk about women not getting to decision making, why is it so? So it's a question of governance. So a lot of issues can be addressed, and for the UN, we try to first help understand
the issues,
and then build strategies towards implementing the policies. We are not a donor itself, but we are here to create environment for others who can bring much. And that's why we also build on partnership. And we hope that those who can bring the investment in the country will know where to go. And the UN is here to provide
that guidance.
Also capacity building because if the country itself does not have a vision for that, it's not the partners who's going to do the development for them. So leadership is important, and that is also a niche for the UN. We do help build leadership in countries so that they can think and also bring the population to express themselves. So I'm coming to participation, okay? We need the population to participate in developing the national development path for themselves. So we are here to support in different ways. Again, let me not say us as UN. Again, I'm coming back again to talk about partnership. Because sometimes we do. I had my young daughter here talking about the responsibility of the government. The responsibility of the government is there to help us understand and lead, but the implementation is for everybody. And here there is one partner we are not talking much about is the private sector. Let's bring private sector on board, because they are the ones to create a job for you. They are the ones to invest. But again, they will not be able to invest if the government does not create
the conducive
a
environment.
So it's a question of everybody's role to be implemented.
Great. Thank you very much, Arsi, for that beautiful elaboration. You mentioned something very important, which is participation, especially for women. And I want to believe this does not only entail high-level decision-making, but decision-making from households, from communities, it starts somewhere. And hopefully we'll get there one day as a country. I hope we come in the next 5-10 years. Issues of inequalities would be something of the past, and we as a country would be talking about things that are, of course, way beyond, inequalities, but things that are very much important also to the advancement and development of women. Madam Jai, I'll come back to you. The theme again for this year is Road to Lasting Peace. So overall, people would go to a certain country in the absence of war and say, oh, this is a very peaceful country. But peace in itself has a very vague meaning. Conflicts, there are conflicts here and there, within communities, within households, within families, it goes on. One, like you mentioned during your statement, is one key institution that the UN works with closely in terms of strengthening and ensuring that there is peace in the different communities that you serve. Road to lasting peace, what does it mean to you as well?
Actually, it depends on who you are talking to when it comes to the definition of peace. For instance, in the country right now, we are not at war. But do we have peace? It depends on who you are.
Good question.
It is not only the absence of war. That's why we have the human security in place. It is not only the absence of war, but again, all facets of development should be catered for. The health, security, jobs, economic, all those things should be factored in. In our case right now, we are not at war, but we are not also, are we? It's really difficult because at the end of the day, we've seen what is happening within the health sector. Yes, we do have some very good structure when it comes to healthcare, but again, how are they fulfilling the needs of the citizenry? Many have to resort to private clinics because of the absence of, the basic healthcare services in our public. Many don't have trust in our healthcare system nowadays. The same applies to our schools, the public schools. It is frowned upon. So going to bed with hungry stomach, all those kind of things entails what we call peace. It's not only defined in one area. All these things have to come in place before you state that, we are in a peaceful setting.
So in essence, it's subjective, depending on
who you ask.
who you ask.
Who you ask, yeah. It's rather unfortunate, though we are working towards it, but we still have a long way to go as a country. I don't know. I think we are at the bottom 10 as far as the UN index is concerned. So, meaning we have a very long way to go, though we are doing our utmost. But again, there is the need to really, improve on a lot of areas, yeah.
Great, thank you. So, one of the UN initiatives that has been implemented to support peace-building processes in different countries is the UNPBF, which is the United Nations Peace-Building Fund. In the Gambia, it's also been implemented by the UN to support communities in two folds. One, looking at challenges posed by climate change, and the other one is looking at migration through the reintegration of returnees. The UN in the Gambia this year has implemented some good initiatives in selected communities. What we'll just do now is play one of the videos it's a short documentary, a 3-minute one, which would highlight some of the strides being undertaken to strengthen peace between communities in conflict in Central River region. So let's take a look, and we'll continue right after the break.
Minen fondinkeji sambang e fula sambang mandinka minen ngoni ɗo hunde wotere min gari minen mbaɗa setsetal sare nde fof minen gonti hunde wotere sa yi hande ɗum na ɗo wawa wadde hande ko jam addi ɗum so si tawi ni jam arani ɗum wawata won.
What brought us here today is to witness the 4 communities coming together under a unified community called Sambang United. This community have actually been into tension for over a decade now. And when we started, it was not easy to come into these communities very freely. But today we are very happy to come into both communities and also interact with them. Now, during this celebration today, we have various activities. We started with a cleansing exercise in the morning. We will be having an intergenerational or community dialogue between all the communities in Sambang. We would also have a football match where the communities of Sambang together would be playing a different community outside this community. Sambang United versus another team.
For the last 10 years, this community there learned conflict, but now life is getting better. We the youth of the Sambang, the 4 Sambang, now have decided to stop violence, conflict. We want peace and progress. We want harmony forever.
We have started initiatives, and the strategy that we used was to bring both communities together, train them on alternative sources of income, bring them under one roof, whilst we train them, work on the peace building effort. And we did this through craft production, through honey production, and also looking into activities around the Ramadan, doing cookout sessions, talking to elders, bringing community leaders, imams, alcalos together to talk about the peace building fund. And today we are very happy, and because the 2 communities are celebrating their unification, they are celebrating their peaceful coexistence.
UN nana ayenke bakilim fakilim wolti kantu ay kayro le natin na sate ota ay kayro nati banko kan
kabo tayin na kata fula fom mamari ngolu nto lefita kayro dornela anin tenkun anin nyomuto.
Sambal don't want any other conflict or any other land dispute. Everything is now solved. Now by the grace of Almighty, we are going to foster this peace 100%, and we will never spoil it, and it will continue forever.
Amanke sambang fulata amanke sambang maninkata be mtol be musambang kilingol let nun to ko men be jan sa o mantara jam sa ntol be ba kilim fa kiling Nino ma ntol be bali ma kula kunda manyeka kunda nda kunda tol be bali ma
Thank you very much. That was an initiative of UNPBF where there were 2 communities in Sierra, Sambang Fula and Sambang Mandinka, who were in conflict, and through the intervention of the UNPBF, which is the United Nations Peace Building Fund, we were able to bring these communities together to strengthen the peace, but also ensure that the road to lasting peace continues as well. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we do not have a lot of time. So what I'll just do right now is to hand over the baton to each and every one of you, starting with David, to just say your last words to everyone that is watching, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to further converse at another time. So starting with you.
So first of all, I'd like to congratulate the UN on their anniversary. I think the UN, importantly, represents the best aspirations that humankind has for itself and for this planet. And we value the work that they do, and I think the UK, along with so many other countries, stand ready to support them, especially in their work in the Gambia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Alaji?
Yeah, just to endeavor, as I said, to thank the UN for all the work that they've been doing around the world, and to certainly encourage that with all the milestones that they have, there's a lot more that we can do. And the more we can work closer together and build those partnerships, the more we can reach out to more people and impact positively on their lives. And apart from in the Gambia, I think as a council, we have benefited a lot in terms of our partnership with the education systems in the Gambia, especially being able to build our internal capacities, to be able to relate more with the young people, and of course by extension, serving the young people that we are meant to serve.
Great, thank you very much. I'm glad you mentioned partnerships, SDG 17. Partnerships for the goals, and that's something that we're also actively working towards. So thank you very much for highlighting that. Salama?
Okay, let me join my colleagues also in thanking the UN for the long-standing relationship, especially with ONEF the Gambia. As I stated earlier, we've been working in different areas: women, peace and security, environmental security, consolidating democratic governance, youth, peace and security, research. A lot of work has been done over the years. And we really want to urge them also. In most cases, we've been collaborating in the areas of software of development. So maybe after this meeting, we should be able to see how best the RC office will use her good office to also maybe start engaging us in hardware. We need those hardwares too, the office spaces, the vehicles, all those kind of things can help in. And I also want to thank them, though they are doing their utmost, especially when it comes to the forthcoming elections. I can say that from January to now, we have received almost 6 to 7 fact-finding missions from the UN, purely working on election-related issues. Well, they've been coming and going. We've been talking to them, but we are not opportune to know the recommendations coming out of those meetings. How far have they gone in implementing those recommendations? Because the forthcoming election is going to be a high-stake election. We have to accept the fact. As I said, the ONEF policy brief is a must-read. It's a must-read document. We have 18 political parties registered and still counting, and 10 or 12 independent candidates.
And still counting.
And still counting. So we want to urge the political leaders to consider engaging their supporters on their policies, their programs, and their manifestos. If you look at what is going on social media right now, there's a lot of things going on. Hate speech, defamation of characters, and it's not really helpful for this small country that we call our own. So as key stakeholders, the young people, the civil society, the international partners, all of us have a role to play. Prevention is better than cure. Let's start working now. We shouldn't allow these elections, to be an opportunity to create violence in our country.
Thank you very much, Salama. Madam Speaker, over to you.
First of all, I would like to say happy UN Day to everyone.
Thank you.
And also thank UN for its work, as it is always ready to help and support children despite of their age, their race, their religion, their ability, where they are located. Despite of all these things, they are always there to help children and are always ready to defend children. And would also like to thank them. Hence, anywhere there is stability and the country is a member state of the United Nations, they always try and come up with ways, methods, and techniques to address the issue through dialogue, which is very important because it helps the children a lot. Hence, that particular problem is not exposed to the outside, and there is dialogue. They send in peacekeepers, and would also like to thank them for providing funds for the Children National Assembly, organizing peace and peace-building sensitizations for us, teaching us some of the rights and responsibilities of children, and also trying to nurture us on how to be peaceful and how to remind government of its commitment towards the protection of the rights of the children. So thank you to the United Nations, and would always like to tell them to keep up the hard work and continue to support children. And children are very happy, and yeah, happy UMD once again.
Good, good, very good. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. RC, over to you.
Let me conclude by saying thank you to all of our partners from the development partners, from you, from the children, from civil society. You are all, we really cherish the partnership that we have in the Gambia, and we also see the impact that we are making in the country. It's important to really strengthen the partnership. As everybody said here, all the issues, inequalities and other issues, if you don't join hands, no one can say has done.
Yeah.
It will be always something missing on the path. The theme of this year, I said, is related to sustaining peace. And I heard my sister Mohamed saying, hesitating to say, do we really need peace? Or I think, again, peace is like other concepts that complex ones. And you don't have peace when you feel insecure somehow. And insecurity can come from hunger, from poverty, from inequalities, from different issues that we do face in our life, in everyday life. So those are the issues that we need to tackle, that we need to focus on and address, so that everybody can feel secure. When you go to bed, you don't go crying or feeling any angriness on somebody. Those are the issues that we want to address. The Gambia is heading to December elections. My hope is that we get a transparent and a very, very peaceful election. And the partners have enumerated a long list of activities that we are trying to put in place. The stakeholder forum that we are having tomorrow is focusing on politicians and political parties, because we feel that those are the big players for this time towards December 4th. And we hope that they have the call from the children, the call from civil society. We need peace for everybody. And everybody will play his own role. We know that competition is there for power, but we should also take care of all those around us, the women, the children, and we don't want to be children involved in political processes. Please protect the children. You have the audience that are there for you, but we also hope youth is not going to be manipulated. It's important that they join, and we're happy to see that there were many to join the registration process. Because I think more than 58% are young. So you see how the politicians may be focusing on that group. And that's why where we are going. We want to see that the young people are not manipulated and are voting based on their belief. And so after the stakeholder forum, we are going to also address the media, because we know that the media is also a key player in this, on hate speech, on misinformation. Everything that we put on social media is read by the whole world, so we need to be careful on what we put on social media. We need to be careful on those comments we made when somebody is saying, because it can mislead many people and break the peace that we have in the Gambia. So sustaining peace is not only when there is war. In each country we need to sustain peace. So I will stop here and really wish a very, very peaceful elections in the Gambia, and also a happy celebration for the UN Day for everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David. Thank you, RC. Thank you, Sarata. Thank you, Salama. Thank you, Alaji. And thank you, Abdullah. And thank you, special thanks to each and every UN staff in the Gambia who every single day continue to go beyond and above to deliver for the Gambian people, and in order to ensure that no one is left behind during this development process. Happy UN Day to each and every one, and it was a pleasure talking to you today. Until we come your way another time, stay safe, and remember, the road to lasting peace starts with you. Thank you very much.